So let's summarize what we've learned today. Okay? Let's look at the signs of Western decline. You've got higher property prices. This happened throughout the Western world. Inflation and lower quality of life. Higher stock market valuations, which means greater inequality. Less real economic growth, less and less people are doing real jobs. Euthanasia for the poor, just killing off the poor people. Mass immigration, population replacement. Lower birth rate, greater public and private debt, bureaucratic gaslighting. When the government no longer acknowledges problems, it just lies to you directly. And privatization, asset stripping, okay? So all this is happening in the Western world. The question now is, why would this happen? And there are different theories, okay? And we'll go over some of the major theories. There's lots and lots of theories. We'll go over the major ones. And there's going to be overlap between these theories. And some of these theories make a lot of sense, okay? So one major theory is the idea of neoliberalism. The idea of neoliberalism is the belief that all that matters in society, all that matters in life is economic growth. If your society can generate more economic growth, all the problems will be solved, okay? So if your economy runs really fast, then everyone will be happy. That's the idea of neoliberalism. Then you have techno-feudalism, which is the idea that some big corporations, usually these tech companies, they want to control the world. And so they want to turn everyone into slaves. And if you don't have a house, if you don't have your own property, then you can be controlled by these companies, okay? Techno-feudalism. World government, where the United Nations has this conspiracy to control the entire world, to destroy national sovereignty and create a world unified government, okay? Population replacement theory. And the idea here is that the problem for governments in the Western world is that white people are opinionated. They believe in democracy. They believe in freedom. And they're hard to control. So let's replace the white people with Chinese and Indians and Filipinos, because Asian people are more obedient, right? That's the idea. And again, these are just theories. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, okay? And we'll go into these theories later on the semester. Now, the last reason is bureaucratic incompetence. Just the government is just stupid, okay? Now, there's going to be overlap among these theories, and there's some validity to all these theories. But what I want to show you is that there's actually a much better way to analyze this. Whenever you have a problem, you always ask yourself, who benefits? Who is benefiting from this, right? So when we're talking about housing prices, well, clearly property owners are benefiting from this, right? So if we took all the groups, okay, and there's like millions of different groups in society, and we just analyze who benefits from all these trends that we discuss, the answer you would get is rich pensioners. These are the people who benefit the most from these trends. And therefore, we can suspect that they're the ones behind these trends, okay? So let's go over them. Property prices make sense, right? Because they're old, they have houses. They probably have 2 or 3 houses. So they want to see the property prices go up. Higher stock market valuations make sense because they own the most stocks. Euthanasia for the poor makes sense because they want good medical care. If poor people are standing in line, that's a problem for them, right? So just kill the poor people and they'll have better access to healthcare. Right? If that frees up the healthcare system. Mass immigration means cheap labor. If they're old, they're 70 or 80 years old, they need gardeners, they need cooks, they need nurses. Right? Immigrants. Do you guys want to be gardeners and cooks and laborers? You don't want to be, so we have to bring in immigrants.
Professor Jiang Shijin is a Chinese professor, and I've been following up with the teachings that he gives his students, and I came to realize that there is an important information that is shared. And why are we always seeing these old leaders driving the countries to the grave? The most important point here is Mr. Donald Trump, because everything that he talks about is so much reflective to what's happening to the United States today. I mean, when you try to look at all how these things unravel, it's a reflection of what's happening in the United States. And I really found this clip so much educative. I really found this clip so much important, and I wanted to share with you because these are all of the things that we have been discussing. The odd leaders in place here is Mr. Donald Trump, and Mr. Donald Trump is always serving the oligarchs, is not serving the citizens, right? And that's why we are having all these things which are happening today. And so, brothers and sisters, I'm inviting you to watch this video. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Jitok Stories. Well, I'm hoping that we are all going to learn from this lecture that is going to share with us, because I find this really, really important. There are a couple of things that he talks about: higher property taxes, higher stock market valuation, euthanasia for the poor, mass immigration, that's cheap labor, talk about inflation, and all these other things that are affecting people. There is an immigration crisis in the United States which is going on until today. The crackdown for Indians have just begun. Initially, it was Latinos. The other day, an high cost of living is killing the people of the United States. And why? Because the old are taking the world to the grave. That's according to Professor Jiang Shuijin. So let's watch this video. I hope you all get to learn and get this important information, this valuable information, and understand how all these people are playing according to the script, because they have all done this. Rome, count it all, because all these empires that have fallen, they are the ones, and they have followed the same damn script. So let's get into it. I'll be back, and then I'll be sharing my thoughts. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Jitok Stories. And for those who are watching me for the first time, I'm just asking you to please subscribe to the channel, join my membership. And if you wish to buy me a coffee, please, I won't mind. You can buy me a coffee through my Cash App account. I'll be really grateful. But until then, let's watch the video. I'll be back. Let me see you after the video.
And everything else, okay? Inflation, economic growth, lower birth rate, gaslighting, it doesn't really affect them. Does that make sense? So all these trends, some of them are really good for these pensioners, and the rest doesn't really affect the pensioners. And that's why we can assume, for analysis, that's the rich pensioners who are most responsible for what's going on. Does it make sense to you guys? All right, so how can we understand this? Well, the problem that we're facing is never in human history have we had so many old rich people before, okay? And you can see these trends where in the year 1900, people who are 75 and older were just a small fraction of society, but you can see how fast they're growing, okay? Over 60 years old, really growing really fast. There's a problem because if they keep on living, they accumulate more and more resources, which creates a lot more inequality. Now, I'm not saying that all old people are rich. In fact, that's not the case. If you just look at statistics, you will find that wealth is pretty much evenly distributed among demographics, okay? So there are young people with a lot of money, but there are more old people with money. Okay? So there are lots and lots of old people, the purple are old people who are poor. I'm not saying that old people are the problem, I'm saying that old rich people are the problem. They're a problem because they want their pensions. The pension systems in all societies made assumptions about old people. The major assumption that they made is that old people would die, right? So, for example, in Canada, when they first created the pension system, the retirement age was 65, and they expected people to die when they're 72. So you have 5 to 7 years of a good pension, okay? Guess what, guys? They're not dying, right? And that creates a huge problem with your pension plan. And you can see how these liabilities are going up over time. These are teachers, and as you can see, the liabilities are going way up. Why is this happening? It's happening because of something called assumption changes, okay? So 2 assumptions are being made. First is that old people will die. Well, they're not dying. The other assumption is that if you put money in the stock market, it will year by year improve, right? The problem is that there's volatility in the stock market. It goes up and goes down. And the smart people make money off dumb people. Guess what, guys? Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. In finance, where do the dumbest people work? You guys know? In finance, the dumbest people work where? They work in pension funds. Why? Because it's a boring job. You just sit there and do nothing all day. So these pension funds are constantly getting ripped off from investment banks where the smart people are. Okay, so if you look at all investment vehicles, pension funds have lost the most money. And this has created huge issues within government pension funds throughout the world. Okay, so as you can see, there's volatility in returns in the pension fund. Okay, when you put the money in, the returns will differ year by year, and that screws up your model. If you're a young person, do not put money in the pension fund. Why? Because the value of the pension fund is going drastically down. When you grow up, when you mature and you retire, guess what, guys? There's no money in the pension fund for you because all that money is gone. Why? Because there are too many retirees and not enough workers. All right, so back in the year 2001, you had a problem. You had 7.6 retirees for every 12.7 workers. The ideal is 1 to 3. So 1 pensioner, 3 workers. That's a healthy pension system. Now you have more pensioners, okay, than you have workers. This is a huge problem. These pensions will all go bankrupt in 5 to 10 years' time. At the same time, as I said, old people are not dying. In fact, old people are coming to dominate society. This is America. You can see how people who are 85 and older, whoa, look at this. Look at this. The aging crisis in America is huge. But it's not just America, it's everywhere, right? So by the year 2040, you'll have 65 million people in America who are over 65. You have 15 million Americans who are 85. And guess what? These 15 Americans, most of them are the ones who control America. So they dictate policy. And again, this is happening throughout the world, okay? It's particularly stark in Japan and Germany, but it's happening throughout the world. And this leads us to the idea of gerontocracy, okay? This is Joe Biden, President of the United States, and this is Mitch McConnell, who is head of the Senate. They're both retired now, okay? But they're both in their 80s, and they were the 2 most powerful men in America. He can't walk straight, okay? Whenever he walks, he trips. This guy is even worse because, look at this. The guy's brain dead. The guy is literally brain dead in public, okay? He'll be like, and like, no matter what you do, he's like, this is brain dead, okay? This is a brain freeze. The guy should not be one of the most powerful men in America, but he is. That's the world we live in, because he will not give up power. This is Dianne Feinstein. She died in office. She was 90 years old. She was 90 years old, and she was still working, and she died in her office. And she was a senator in the United States. These people are literally fighting for life. Okay? They refuse to give up power. They only give up power if they die. This is the US Senate, again, the most powerful political institution in America. These are people who are above the standard retirement age, which is 62, okay? This guy's 90 years old, and he's still working. 90 years old, and he's still working in the Senate. And he doesn't want to retire. Chuck Grassley. What does it mean to have a world run by old people? Now, maybe in school, maybe at home you've been taught that old people are wise. They're tolerant. They're generous. They're benevolent. No, guys. No. The difference between these 3 generations, young, mature, and elderly, are pretty stark. If you're young, you're rebellious. You want to change the system. If you're mature, you want things to move slowly, okay? But if you're elderly, you're reactionary, meaning you don't want anything to change. Okay? If you change anything, they get upset and slap you. That's reactionary. Young people are creative. Mature people want growth. But elderly people care first and foremost about safety. Young people are open-minded. Mature people want consensus, meaning they want everyone to get along. But elderly people are stubborn. They want things their way. So we are now living in a gerontocracy which is ruled by elderly people, okay? So we're going to live in a reactionary, stubborn system only concerned about the safety of these people. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that the world will go into lockdown. When there's a virus, guess what? We're all going to have to shut down because old people are afraid of catching germs. It will also lead to a police state. Okay? Now, police state does not mean that there'll be terrible police coming to beat us up. In fact, if in real life, most police that you meet are really, really nice people, but you have no individual freedom. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. So in Canada, a Chinese moved to Canada, and she bought a house, and her son is very naughty. And her son was so naughty that she wants to slap him. But she knows that in Canada, you can't really slap children, even in private, right? So she goes online and asks everyone, can I slap my child? And everyone's like, you can't do that because if you do that, your neighbors will report you to the police. But what you can do is report your child to the police. Tell the police your child is naughty and they'll come and help you discipline your child. In fact, you can get the police to come every single week. They like that. This is what we call a police state, okay? Intrusive government interference into your personal lives. Oh, and lots of surveillance, okay? Wherever you move, you'll be tracked. Whatever call you make, you'll be tracked. In 2003, Britain passed something called the Online Safety Act. And the idea is, if you say anything bad online, you can get arrested. Okay, so the freedom of expression is being limited. This passed in 2023 in Britain, but I assume it will pass everywhere in the Western world. Digital currency. The idea of digital currency is the idea of financial repression. So they're trying to eliminate cash because with cash, there's freedom. You can do whatever you want with cash. You can buy whatever you want for how much you want with cash. But with digital currency, all your transactions will be limited and monitored. Okay? So in the future, you will not be able to buy video games because that's bad for you. Oh, microchip implants, guys. Right? Isn't that great? Before you had cell phones, then you had facial recognition, and in the future you have implants, microchip implants. Immigrants, lots and lots of immigrants, because rich pensioners need help. They need nurses, they need laborers, they need gardeners, they need people to mow their lawn. So you have massive immigration coming into the country. Oh, but good news, okay? It'll be easier for you to study in America from now on, right? Today, Trump announced he wants 600,000 Chinese students to go to the United States, right? Before you guys were worried about not getting your visas and getting denied at the border, don't worry, guys. They want you to go to the United States because you guys are the best labor, okay? You're cheap, you're obedient, and you're studious, and you're young. Okay? So this is the plan, to let in more Chinese students into America so you guys can take care of elderly people. Isn't that great? Good news, right? Oh, lots and lots of prisons, guys. Okay? Because elderly people are afraid of criminals. And also, prisoners are free labor. Isn't that great? Oh, and one more thing. War after war after war. All right? This is what it means by death by gerontocracy. This is what it means to live in a world governed by elderly people. Elderly people are perfectly happy to send young people to die for their glory. All right? Okay. Pretty depressing, but don't worry. Things will get even more depressing as we go along.
I'd like to say that Americans are so hopeful. They're a group of hopeful people. And in as much as we are seeing all this crazy stuff happening, people still believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel. People still believe that there is hope at the end of this all. When you look at the lecture of Professor Jiang Sujin and everything that he shares, you get to understand that this is how Rome fell. This is how all these ancient empires also fell. The United States is not inevitable. I mean, it's inevitable that it's gonna be failing. And all this that we are seeing, it's gonna happen. It's not that we can't feed the poor, it's that we can't satiate the rich. And this is a person that talked about this because all that Americans are doing today is waking up in the morning, work for the rich, because there is tax cut for them. And for the poor, there is no tax cut for you. And this means that property tax value that you pay on this is so much. Well, there is people that are going to benefit out of it. Somebody is saying that a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. That's a Greek proverb. It's true. Look at this metaphorically. We plant trees, but the old people that we have are cutting down trees. Symbolically, the trees are the resources that should be helping these citizens of the United States. Well, this is not helping the citizens of the United States. What they're doing, they are cutting the trees. The poor are always fighting to feed. The top rich are always fighting to remain at the top. The top poor are fighting to move at the poor, but the people who are in power are always trying to keep them down, to keep them where they are. And as a result, it becomes problematic. It becomes a society that people give up on, a society that only cares about profit. And now it becomes problematic when this happens. Somebody's saying that I was a butcher for a while with an old guy who was planning to retire soon. He was afraid I was going to take his job, and so he will never teach me how to cut. He will give me the grunt labor, which I understood being a nudie, but he would always dodge showing me anything that would help me actually advance in the craft, almost outlandishly. It happens because people are afraid that they are going to retire, and then what after that? Because it's not like in the past when you know that there is a retirement, there's a retirement support or the pension that you're gonna be given, right? So somebody's saying that people wonder why the old are not respected in the US, but never think about their treatment of the young. The old continues to move the goalpost by supporting policies and ideas that make it harder for younger generations. There's a fight. There's a generational fight because of political ideological stance that all these groups have, and this creates, all this. It's not class difference, but age difference when it comes to understanding the political structures of the United States and how people view all these things. The problem is the poor and how the poor thinks. No, not the poor, the old, and how this old group of people thinks, and their thinking levels, and how they handle all these issues. Somebody's saying that I have been saying this forever. It all started when I played Dark Souls. The game grabbed my mind like death grip. Yes, the game has it so many times, but the one theme that stuck with me was the desperation of keeping the flame alive. Create myths, legends, society, politics, and governance around the fact that the old gods wanted to keep the flame alive. They sold this illusion so much that it can become the engine to keep the flame alive. A hollowed hero will come and sacrifice themselves to keep the flame alight. But there is another path, a path to blow the fragile flame. The path is considered blasphemy. The old are scared to change. They are frightened of their inevitable dusk, and they rot our dawn. That's what's happened because they don't want to embrace change. And so they're making it hard for the younger generations and all the structures that is favoring the young generations. And so when all this mess is happening, it is because of the old people, because of the ideas that they have that is not even applicable to the contemporary society today when it comes to politics, social issues, and all these geopolitical factors that are happening around the world today. Somebody's saying that I am sick of these old politicians who are way beyond the age. They will be allowed to do any other kind of work. In addition to term limits, we need upper age limits. Yeah, somewhere in the middle. Somebody saying that I've been saying this since in the 80s, not because I'm so kind of intellectual giant, but because my grandparents saw it coming and warned us kids about it. My economic prof argued with me about it in the college. However, 99% of what my grandparents warned us about has come to pass already, and most of them did not even have a high school diploma. It's crazy that this is happening. Somebody is saying that this just helped me see how crazy it is that we are expected to devote 40 plus years of our lives to making money for a business we never really get a piece of, and we are really only given maybe a decade to actually enjoy life. It's crazy that people are opening up and talking about these things. I have noticed how greedily and entitled they are. They can collect, take, harvest for 30 years, and it's not enough. It is expected forever. It's so abnormal and insane. Somebody is also saying that ultimate sin when the elderly demand for more while taking the future of youths. Once you reach a certain age, you don't ask or force yourself for more. You give it up for the future generations. It is the time to enjoy life for whatever the ever amount of years left within your loved ones, and to guide the younger generations to the brighter path. Somebody is also saying that for all generations, it was normal that after death, you could walk over the rainbow, take a coin of gold for the entry in heaven, and be free. Then the boomers came, took the whole pot of gold and rolled up the rainbow from the other side, leaving everyone after them stranded with nothing. Everyone is just complaining about the same issue. Somebody is saying that at the funeral home when my grandma died, my sister, uncle, and cousin were picking out a casket. My 92-year-old grandmother was sitting at the table, and the funeral director made a point to ask him if he had any questions, if wanted to know prices. He told her it didn't matter to him. They are all just spending their inheritance. Damn. Somebody is talking about this. I think this is important. This is the second last comment that I'm going to be reading in regards to this video. Somebody is saying that the United States has a minimum age limit for service in the highest parts of the government, but not maximum. In no way should anyone over 75 be able to provide input on the lives of regular everyday folk. Realistically, they only have 10 to 15 years of life left and should not be in a position to make life-altering decisions for anyone, since they will not be here. And this is the last comment that I'm reading. Somebody is saying that CEOs making 31,000% higher income than their employees is a factor in this. When CEOs get 12 million a year and employees can never afford homes, kids, cars, repairs, schools, or groceries, it is a recipe for a disaster. You will think they are smart enough to understand paying people better will put more money in their pockets to buy the shit they want them to buy. In about 20 years, they aren't going to have customers because people aren't starting families. The Gen Z population is half the size of millennials. And if they can't afford children, the birth rate is going to drop even lower. If this trend keeps up, the children of Gen Z will be an even smaller population than the Gen Z. Then less and less people to extract money from, especially if the trends of CEO taking all the money goes up, which it has been. Please really let me know what you think about this video. I'm your host and presenter, Gerontocracy Stories. I hope this discussion was so much fruitful. Let me know down in the comment section. But until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.